Dead men tell no tales, but their ships speak volumes. Welcome to the Cursed Compass, where we explore the darkest maritime mysteries.
In August 1853, a massive merchant vessel known as a Blackwall frigate sailed out of Melbourne, Australia, charting a course for London. Tucked inside her hold were 170 passengers and crew, alongside 86 heavy wooden boxes. Those boxes contained over 2 tons of raw gold dust and minted sovereign coins. The ship crossed the horizon and was simply never seen again. Months passed, then years. Search parties found no splintered hull, no washed-up lifeboats, and not a single survivor. A 3-masted wooden fortress carrying roughly $100 million in today's money had evaporated. What began as a standard merchant run instantly evolved into an investigation spanning 3 centuries. The Madagascar initially arrived in Australia for a different purpose. Earlier that year, she operated under the Female Immigration Fund, a program to transport working-class women, many trapped in the dreary labor of needlework in London, to a better life in the colonies. By the time the ship dropped anchor in June of 1853, Melbourne was gripped by chaos. The Victorian gold rush was in full swing, pulling tens of thousands of desperate prospectors to the diggings. The allure of instant wealth shattered the ship's discipline. Almost immediately, 14 members of the crew jumped ship, deserting their posts to try their luck in the goldfields. The captain could only find 3 replacements. For nearly a month, the understaffed vessel sat anchored, while workers continually loaded those 86 boxes of newly mined gold into her hold. They were effectively advertising a $100 million fortune to a city overrun with opportunists. An immobilized ship with a skeleton crew and a heavily loaded cargo bay created an incredibly vulnerable target. That vulnerability drew the attention of the authorities. Just hours before the ship was scheduled to weigh anchor, Melbourne police stormed the deck and arrested several passengers.
The detectives linked these men to the McIvor gold escort robbery, a violent ambush that had taken place weeks earlier. Hardened criminals were attempting to use the Madagascar as a getaway vehicle. The arrests delayed the departure to August 12th, but they also cast a deep shadow over the voyage. If 3 of the robbers had bought tickets, everyone wondered how many of their heavily armed accomplices were still mingling among the remaining 110 passengers. When the Madagascar finally cleared Port Phillip Heads, she carried a toxic mix of wealth, paranoia, and desperate people. Once the ship entered the open ocean with its depleted crew, it met with absolute, unbroken silence. Investigators had to piece together what could have possibly happened. One highly plausible theory pointed to the cargo hold. Alongside the gold, the ship was packed with heavy bales of raw wool. If the wool was damp, bacterial fermentation could generate enough internal heat to trigger spontaneous combustion, burning the ship to the waterline before anyone could react. Another distinct possibility lies in the geography of the route. To reach London, the ship had to navigate the freezing waters of the Southern Ocean toward Cape Horn. A blind collision with a drifting iceberg in the heavy fog would have breached the wooden hull instantly. The freezing water would pull the heavy ship down in minutes. A sudden, overwhelming environmental strike remains one of the few logical reasons a vessel that size could sink without launching a single distress boat. But the public rarely settles for natural disasters when human malice is an option. The most heavily debated theory argues that the McIvor gang accomplices executed a hostile takeover. According to this scenario, the criminals waited until they were far from land to seize control. They gathered the gold, murdered the captain and the passengers, and deliberately scuttled the ship to hide the evidence. This narrative exploded in the 1870s, when newspapers began publishing unverified deathbed confessions from supposed survivors. These stories detailed grisly betrayals, claiming the mutineers eventually turned on each other, dying on remote shores while fighting over the stolen wealth. These confessions were likely pure fiction, yet the mutiny legend survives because a story of violent human greed offers a far more satisfying conclusion than random, quiet bad luck on the open water. Over a century and a half later, the exact location of the Madagascar is still unknown. The promise of 2 tons of missing gold has kept treasure hunters completely obsessed. In the 1990s, an explorer claimed to have found 19th century cutlery and copper nails near the remote Anuanuraro Atoll in French Polynesia. Looking at this map, we can see that this location is thousands of miles off the ship's planned route to Cape Horn, which would support the hijacking theory. The search is further complicated by internet myths. Today, people frequently confuse the 1853 Madagascar with a completely different ship, the Nossa Senhora do Cabo, which was plundered by the infamous pirate Olivier Levasseur, known as La Bousse, off the actual coast of Madagascar in 1721. Because the SV Madagascar left behind absolutely zero physical evidence of its own, its history easily becomes tangled with these older, unrelated tales of Golden Age piracy. Strip away the rumors, and the core facts remain staggering. 170 human beings and $100 million in gold vanished without a trace. In our current era of satellite tracking and instant communication, it is deeply unsettling to realize that something of this immense physical weight and value could simply drop off the map. It serves as a stark reminder of the ocean's sheer, untearing scale, a deep, dark void wholly capable of swallowing human ambition, conflict, and wealth in an instant, without leaving so much as a ripple. The SV Madagascar remains the ultimate maritime mystery, anchored by the terrifying, silent blank space it left behind.